All right, let's dive right into this. We all kind of think we've got this built-in lie detector, don't we? You probably believe you can spot a fake a mile away. Maybe you look for the way they avoid your gaze, or you listen for a subtle little shift in their tone of voice. We rely so heavily on our gut intuition. But today, in this explainer, the actual science of deception detection is going to completely upend how you see yourself. We're going to look closely at what the data actually says about our ability to uncover the truth. And I promise you, it is way stranger than you might think.
Seriously, just picture this. Right now, at this very second, someone somewhere is flashing a big, warm smile at a person they secretly cannot stand. And hey, if we're being totally honest with ourselves, you've probably done this too. I know I have. Humans are literally, without exception, some of the most highly practiced deceivers on the planet. We navigate our complex social lives by constantly curating our reactions. But here's the wild part. Even though we are expert deceivers ourselves, almost everyone mistakenly believes they are naturally gifted at spotting when other people are faking it.
Okay, so I need to hit you with some hard data right out of the gate, and it's a little humbling. 54%. That's it. This number comes from a massive meta-analysis conducted by researchers Charles Bond and Bella DiPaolo. They looked at over 200 different studies on deception detection. And what they found, unequivocally, is that the average person can distinguish a truth from a lie with an accuracy of just 54%. To really put that into perspective, decades of rigorous research prove that you are barely better than random chance at detecting deception. And that's despite this near-universal confidence we all share that we're somehow exceptionally good at it. Just think about that for a second. If you literally just flipped a coin every single time someone spoke to you, you'd be almost as accurate as your so-called intuition. It completely shatters the illusion that we can just feel when someone is lying to us. So why are we so bad at it? Well, we basically have to throw out all the crutches we usually lean on. We've been taught for decades by movies and TV that avoiding eye contact, touching your face, or getting fidgety are these massive dead giveaways of a liar. But almost every popular belief about spotting a liar has been directly put to the test in controlled research environments. And the results? They are incredibly disappointing for anyone who is hoping for a simple, easy physical trick to spot a fake. Actually, there's this great quote from psychologist Alder Vrij. He's one of the most cited researchers in this entire field. And he puts it so bluntly. He points out that these commonly cited physical cues show incredibly weak, inconsistent correlations with actual lying. In other words, they're simply way too unreliable to use as a dependable signal in the real world. So if a shifting gaze or a fidgety hand doesn't actually mean someone is lying to you, what on earth does? Okay, so if physical tells are a total myth, what actually works? When you dig into the deception studies, something genuinely fascinating emerges. There are certain professionals who actually do perform meaningfully better than average. But the catch is, they aren't achieving this by spotting nervous physical behavior. They are doing it by relentlessly tracking verbal consistency. Researchers studying specific occupational groups found that certain federal law enforcement officers genuinely do score notably above the general population when it comes to accuracy. But their advantage doesn't come from spotting a nervous physical tick or noticing a single bead of sweat under a hot interrogation lamp. It has absolutely nothing to do with those classic Hollywood tropes we all know. Instead, they act more like human auditors than human lie detectors. They pay laser-focused attention to tracking verbal inconsistencies. They're constantly looking for contradictions between what someone is saying right now versus what they said 20 minutes ago, or even days earlier. They're probing for structural details in a story that just do not logically hold together when you press them. Because the absolute strongest predictor of dishonesty is rarely how someone behaves physically. It's whether their story remains logically consistent across multiple retellings, especially when they have no idea they're being tracked for consistency. No, to understand why the rest of us are so easily fooled, we kind of have to look in this psychological mirror for a minute. Psychologist Timothy Levine coined this concept called the truth bias. Basically, humans are systematically wired with a really strong default assumption that other people are telling us the truth. We don't walk around assuming everyone is lying to our faces. We assume we aren't being lied to. We are heavily, systematically biased toward believing the information we're given. And honestly, this bias exists for a fantastic evolutionary reason. I mean, think about it. Constant suspicion would make cooperative social living nearly impossible. Society would instantly grind to a total halt if we aggressively interrogated every single person we interacted with at the grocery store or the office. But this exact same bias means that skilled deceivers rarely even need elaborate techniques. They mostly just benefit from the fact that you, the listener, simply aren't actively looking for a lie in the first place. Which brings us to a concept from psychologist Thomas Gilovich that is, frankly, a little uncomfortable to realize. It's called the illusion of transparency. This is our tendency to consistently overestimate how visible our own internal emotional state is to the outside world. And what's wild is that this works in both directions. The liar often feels way more exposed than they actually are, while you, the observer, feel way more perceptive than the data says you are. So both sides of a deceptive interaction are basically totally wrong about how much is genuinely visible. Let's bring this into your actual day-to-day life, because this is where it gets highly relevant. Think about social media algorithms, dating app profiles, or those super short professional networking interactions. Modern digital communication compresses human relationships into exactly the kind of brief single encounter formats where the deception detection research shows we perform our absolute worst. We are constantly, and I mean constantly, making these massive snap judgments based on a single conversation, a quick swipe on an app, or a brief scroll. We truly think we can gauge someone's authenticity instantly based on how they carry themselves for just a few seconds. But here's the kicker. That instinct to judge authenticity in a matter of seconds is exactly what the data says is the least reliable thing you can do. It is the literal opposite of what the science recommends for finding the truth. So, is spotting a fake completely hopeless? Well, no, not entirely. But the actual solution is a whole lot slower. Longitudinal studies show that pattern recognition over time is the key. You have to move from a single interaction, which we know has incredibly low reliability, to tracking their consistency weeks later, and then ultimately seeing if their actions actually align with their stated values months down the road. The most reliable signal you will ever get comes from watching whether their behavior remains consistent when absolutely nothing is being asked of them. So, to wrap up this explainer, just remember this. The actual signal of truth was never hiding in a fake smile or a nervous little twitch. It is entirely in the timeline. So the very next time you think you've spotted a liar, don't ask yourself if they're fidgeting or looking away. Ask yourself this one simple question. Is their story still making sense? Keep that in mind, and you'll finally be relying on the science rather than the myths.